Oh, time for another vlog. A shortish one this time. Because I don't have a specific subject to talk about. I just thought I'd do a general update and chat about odds and ends that have been passing through what passes for my mind. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you might notice I'm producing fewer videos. I'm kind of giving myself a break. So it's less than one a week on average at the moment. More like one every couple of weeks, but I haven't got a particular schedule in mind. The advertised schedule is technically one a week, approximately. But if I've got nothing to say, I'm not going to just make one for the sake of it. Yeah. So, what's going on? I know YouTube is messing up with their rules and having been fined by the FTC or whatever. They have to introduce their copper scheme to, I don't know, mess things up basically. And I don't care. Because it's not going to affect my channel particularly, and even if it does, I'm not making a fortune out of it by a long way. If my income from YouTube was increased about 1,000 times, a 100 times actually, trying to do the maths in my head, it's not difficult, move the decimal point a couple of places, right? Yeah, it would matter, I suppose, because there's always a risk that then demonetization or something will have a serious impact on one's income. But I'm not dependent on YouTube for anything, so hard luck. If they finally become a mainstream channel with no space for independent views, I'll stick my videos somewhere else or just not make them anymore. At the moment I can't be bothered to upload them to places like BitChute or wherever, because I go to work every day, I haven't got the time, and even if I were at home all the time, would I bother? Would I be bothered? I don't know. Should I? Do I want them all out there? I have every single video, I think, backed up, which is a lot. About, what, 1,300 videos or something by now? Many of them out of date, obviously, but still. I could upload them, it would take a long time. It's more than a... Must be maybe a terabyte of data? I don't know. Several hundred megs anyway. It would take a long time. Like a month or two. Just to upload them, but there you go. So I'm not that interested. What I need is an assistant to do all my work for me, really. And that's not going to happen. So there you go. We have an election in Britain. It's kind of a Brexit election. Do we vote for the Tories and Brexit, or do we vote for some other party, probably Labour and social justice? And another referendum on Brexit in that case. Don't know. And furthermore, the issue always comes up, because we have a first past the post system here, and people say, well, no, we should have proportional representation. It's insane. With a first past the post system, in each constituency, the only votes that count are the votes that voted for the winner in that constituency. All the other votes are discarded, basically. So if someone gets, I don't know, 10,000 votes, and someone else gets 9,999 votes, the 10,000 vote person gets the parliamentary seat, and that's it. All the other votes are discarded, and because of that, you get anomalies like nationwide, fewer people can vote for the winning party because they happen to win in the various seats. Fewer people could have voted for that party than voted for the others, but still, they win. And also, some modest parties can end up with almost no parliamentary seats at all, even though they get quite a lot of votes. UKIP was an example of that in the last... Gotta go. The doorbell's ringing. Oops! Of course! Back in a minute. Right. See, now I'm going to have to edit this video. Package from Whitehaven in Connecticut, USA. There we go. One of the Christmas presents. Now, proportional representation gets around the issues of so many votes being discarded, in that the votes for the lesser parties are counted in some way, and seats are portioned in Parliament roughly according to how many votes the parties actually received overall. And on the face of it, that's a fairer system. But there are issues with it. In particular, the biggest problem that I'm aware of, I expect there are others, is that very often you get an effect that looks like a hung parliament in a first-past-the-post system. What happens is, usually, under proportional representation, the party that comes third, in fact, just the leader of the party that comes third, determines which of the two major parties actually is going to form the government. Because, for example, if the first party gets 40%, 45% of the votes, say, and the second party gets 40%, and the third party gets 10%, since the difference between the other two parties is only 5%, the 10% that the third party gets is going to be a deciding factor in who's going to form a government. And this happens all the time in countries like Germany and Israel, where they have this kind of system. The third party, the leader of the third party, who may be a total loon, right, some minor radical party of who knows what, okay, decides, well, okay, we'll ally with party B because they've agreed to compromise on some policies and they're going to implement one of ours, which 90% of the population did not vote for. And that's great. Well, is that democratic? It's a bit strange. Sure, in a democracy you have to look after the rights of minorities, but it seems a disproportionate amount of power to give to some tiny parties. Under the first-past-the-post system, a party with only 10% of the vote is unlikely to get any members of Parliament whatsoever. In Britain, the Green Party, which gets quite a few votes nationwide, only typically gets one MP, because they happen to win in Brighton all the time, right? Brighton's one of those middle-class green areas, if you like. There are quite a few of them, but they only managed to win there. And yeah, UKIP didn't get any MPs, I think, even though they won quite a few votes in the election before last. Or maybe they got one. No, I don't think they did. No. And they got millions of votes. Under PR, they definitely would have had places in Parliament, and they would have had an influence, more influence, perhaps. Though they had quite a lot of influence anyway, because the parties were a bit panicked. Under a first-past-the-post system, you do get the same situation, because you get hung parliaments. So at the moment we've had the Tories propped up by the Ulster Unionist Party, and their current manifesto is called, they claim to be the Conservative and Unionist Party. Indeed. Maybe that's always their name, I don't know. But you get it less often in a first-past-the-post system. Usually in a first-past-the-post system, one party has a clear majority and they get to implement their policies, more or less. Probably the best situation is to have a first-past-the-post with a party with a clear majority, but only a small clear majority, so that they have to work a bit to get their policies through. Because otherwise the opposition isn't really doing anything. At the moment, though, we've got the first-past-the-post system, and as I say, it's a choice between Brexit, which is basically the Tories. There is a Brexit party, but I can't see how voting for anybody else is going to achieve anything. Or you can vote for Labour and their manifesto, which is full of 120 pages of spending promises, based on taxing the rich mostly. But if you want some social justice, if you want shorter working week, if you want your lunch breaks to be actually paid for, like they used to be, that might be a good idea. See, at the moment, like, I used to have working week of, 35 hours or something, and it increased, 10 years or so ago, maybe a bit more than that. It's probably longer than that. And I'm working now 9 hours a day, except I'm not, because the lunch break is in the middle of that. So it's technically 8 hours, but there's a lunch break in the middle, but it means the day is 9 hours. But it used to be the case that lunch break was paid for, so the day including lunch was 8 hours. But obviously companies have taken advantage of the fact that they can get you to work a bit later in the day, or start a bit earlier, or both, and not pay you extra, right? So Labour wants to reverse that, which I think is a good thing. The days are too long. I get home, there's no time for anything. In fact, even eating my evening meal, it's too close to bedtime, for good health. You're supposed to leave, a considerable gap of a few hours. It's like 2 hours at best, really. Is all I can manage now. It would be 3 with a proper set of rules. Now it has to be said, of course, that Labour trashed the economy badly in the last election, and they sometimes overspend. But the Tories believe in the same kind of market deregulation that trashed it. So they're no different. It just hasn't happened under their watch lately. So there's no actual difference there, I think. Labour probably will overspend, but it's about time some money was spent, I think. But if I want Brexit, which I do, I've got to vote Tory. But in fact, given a choice between Brexit and some improvements to society, I think Brexit is a secondary issue. If we leave, we leave. If we don't, we don't. I've had enough of the arguments, really. Labour at the moment is no longer a Blairite centrist party, a mini Tory party as it was under Tony Blair. They've gone back to being almost Marxist. They're probably too far, but still, one term of them might be okay. We'll see. I do believe in capitalism up to a point, but it does suck too much money from the poor and give too much to those who are very well off and too much influence to them. It is a system of piracy and exploitation, essentially, enshrined in law. Its good side is creation of wealth and promotion of innovation. Its bad side is very poor distribution of it, and blaming people for not doing well in the system, when the system actually involves a lot of rent-seeking, which is not capitalism, and which blocks social motivation and social mobility. We need something which probably hasn't been invented yet, which gives you the opportunities but doesn't block progress, and doesn't entrench wealth permanently in the wrong hands, really. But since that hasn't been invented, chopping and changing every now and then is maybe a better way. I think a vote for Brexit was a vote for change. People were fed up with the way things are being run, and the EU got the blame because there hadn't been any good propaganda in favour of it, and it is, after all, being run by bureaucrats who are not really elected by us, who are not elected by us. And it doesn't listen to what people want, even though we have representatives there like the Prime Minister and the Council, the European Council. They do what they want as well, so the heck with them, right? That was Brexit. But so we voted for change and nothing's changing, actually. So we can force the change by getting the Tories in and Brexit to happen, maybe, or maybe we can radically change again and get Labour in with their strongly social justice style policies. Hobson's choice, eh? I'll decide right at the last minute. I don't know. Anyway, the other thing I've been thinking about, funnily enough, is alien abductions and David Icke's Reptilians. I mean, I'm not saying that it's true or that it's real. There is a phenomenon. What it is, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows for sure, or if they do, they're not saying, or if they are saying, nobody's believing them. But certainly there are lots and lots of reports around the world of people who are abducted by aliens, then they're plonked back, and usually they forget all about it because it's like their memories are wiped or something. And eventually when these stories come out, it turns out under hypnosis that they've been abducted lots and lots of times. Not that hypnosis is 100% reliable, we know. It's all hearsay at the end of the day, except in those cases where there are multiple witnesses. So something is happening. And these stories go back thousands of years. It used to be the fairy folk that abducted people. Then they actually look the same in some of the ancient drawings as the sort of grey aliens that we see in our drawings today. But one thing struck me about them, which is that if you look at David Icke's descriptions of the reptilians who are secretly controlling or trying to control the Earth, he says that they feed on people's negative emotions. And people have wondered, if these aliens are abducting people and sticking probes into their brains and other places, for no obvious, clear medical reason, or they're making them breed with weird-looking aliens and stuff. It doesn't seem rational from any sort of scientific or rational perspective what the aliens would be doing. Or I call them aliens as a catch-all phrase for whatever the heck they are. They may not be from elsewhere. They may be some purely mental phenomenon or generated magnetic hallucinations or something. But hallucinations are ruled out in those cases where multiple people see them at the same time. Because if you think about it, you give people hallucinogenic drugs, they don't all see the same thing. They have hallucinations, but they don't see the same things. So there's something. Anyway, think about the alien abduction experience. People get abducted. They're scared half out of their wits. They get probed, they get cut, stuff is done. Even babies have been removed from wombs and disappear. Right. Some serious interventions happen sometimes. Then they find themselves back in their car or back in their house or wherever they were, or somewhere hundreds of miles away sometimes, and no memory of what's happened. And under hypnosis it appears that the same people get abducted multiple times throughout their lives. So every few months maybe they may be abducted again, and they only remember some of them, or they don't remember any in it. It's only under hypnosis when they're suffering from some trauma or something that it comes out. But if you think about it, if they retained their memories of these events, then they would A, get used to them and it wouldn't be so terrifying, and B, they would probably develop some strategies for avoidance as well, or at least for recording it or something. But if you're like a so-called reptilian wanting to feed off negative emotions, what better way would there be to terrify people every now and then make them forget all about it? Because then they would recover their emotional balance over a few days. They think, oh my god, that was some nightmare I had, if they remember it at all. And then you could kidnap them again and terrify them all over again. Because it turns out that when they see the aliens again, the memories are not joined up. They remain compartmentalised of the separate events, usually. So they don't suddenly say, oh my god, this is happening again. It's all new to them again each time, or so it seems. Very strange. Interesting mental technology. And could they be just feeding on the fear, as David Icke would postulate, if these guys are what he thinks of as the reptilians, or a branch of them? Of course it's all mad, isn't it? Yeah. Except that there is something going on. From looking at the various books on the topic, it doesn't seem like it's just authors making money. It may be in some cases, but there are, by the looks of it, proper cases too. So just thinking maybe these are the same kinds of creatures. Maybe another branch of them. Maybe they don't exist at all, and that's your attitude, fine. Because we don't have hard evidence, let's face it. Or if we do, it's being kept from us. Yeah, just a thought. thoughts below. Bye for now.